My name is Sophia Allen, and the message that ended my family came on an ordinary Tuesday lunch break. The hum of the vending machine was louder than usual. My phone buzzed once Dad's name on the screen, and then the words that hollowed me out. "We're cutting all ties. Don't come around ever again." Before I could blink, my sister reacted with a heart. Just a heart, the kind people use for cute puppies, not disowning someone. I stared at it, then typed one line back, "I'll pull my name from all loans tomorrow." By midnight, the family chat was burning. I used to believe family meant safety. That belief carried me through years of cleaning up other people's messes, of turning panic into payment plans. My father ran a small construction business that was always one contract away from success. My mother, Helen, had a talent for turning guilt into currency. Soft voice, trembling hands. "We just need a little help, honey." And Derek, my older brother, was the golden one. Every bad choice came wrapped in a promise. Just until next month. I was the steady one, the problem solver, the human credit card. When I was 24, they asked me to co-sign a small business loan. "It's just paperwork," Dad said. "You won't even notice." I signed. Then came another loan for the truck, then the line of credit for home repairs. The word temporary became our family anthem. Over time, the debt under my name looked less like help and more like chains. Outside, people saw the Allens as close-knit. Sunday dinners, matching sweaters, a picture-perfect family framed on the mantel. Inside, I felt like an unpaid employee keeping the lights on. The family group chat was my second inbox bills reminders, emotional blackmail, disguised as gratitude. "You're a lifesaver, Sophia." Then when I hesitated, "After all we've done for you." That night, after the text, I scrolled back through months of messages, hearts crying emojis, thank you gifts. I stopped at one from Derek sent years ago. "You always fix everything." I laughed out loud, but it sounded more like a choke. I looked around my apartment blazer still draped on the chair, half-eaten sandwich on the desk, and realized how quiet peace actually was. I thought about Liam, my boyfriend, and how he once told me, "You don't owe love to people who treat it like a loan." Back then, I brushed it off as cynicism. Now it sounded like prophecy. I closed. The chat exhaled and whispered, "This time I'm done paying." 2 days before that text, I'd already felt the ground shift. I was at work when a notification popped up from my credit monitoring app, another inquiry under my name. Business loan. Amount $80,000. My stomach turned cold. I hadn't applied for anything in over a year. That night, I drove straight to my parents' house. The porch light was on, the same one Dad always left for Derek, never for me. Mom opened the door with that soft, rehearsed smile. "You should have called, sweetheart." Inside, Dad sat in his recliner, the TV glowing off his glasses. Derek sprawled on the couch, phone in hand, barely glancing up. I held up my phone. $80,000 taken under my name. "You want to explain that?" Mom blinked, feigning confusion. "Oh, honey, your father just needed an extension for the business that's been failing for 5 years, I interrupted. "You used my credit again." Dad's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone. This family needed you. You're good with money. You can handle it." "You mean I can handle your mess," I said. Derek finally looked up, smirking. "You're being dramatic. It's not like we're strangers. We share blood, don't we?" I stared at him. "No, Derek, you share debt." The room went silent except for the TV hum. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. "You're twisting this. We've sacrificed everything for you." I laughed, sharp and tired. "No, Mom. You've spent everything. I just paid the bills." Dad stood, voice rising. "Don't come here blaming us for your selfish choices. You think moving in with that boyfriend makes you better than us?" Something inside me broke clean, final. I felt the years of guilt of being the dependable one snap like a stretched wire. "You know what I said quietly. I'm done." Derek scoffed. "Done with what, carrying you?" I said. "All of you." Mom's eyes filled with tears on cue. "How can you say that to your family?" "Because it's the truth," I replied. I turned for the door, and behind me, Dad muttered, "Ungrateful." That word hit the same way it always had, like a stamp sealing a contract I never signed. The next day during my lunch break, his message arrived. "We're cutting all ties. Don't come around ever again." 5 minutes later, Derek reacted with a heart. I stared at the screen, the buzzing lights overhead, the taste of burnt coffee on my tongue. No anger, just clarity. I typed my reply slow and steady. I'll pull my name from all loans tomorrow. Then I locked my phone, sat back, and listened to the vending machine hum. By midnight, the family chat was chaos caps, lock accusations, guilt trips, voice messages. But I didn't answer. I closed my laptop, drew in a long breath, and thought, they think they've punished me. They just set me free. By morning, my phone looked like a crime scene. Dozens of missed calls, texts in all caps, voicemails from every family member. The group chat was still exploding. Mom, you're tearing this family apart. Dad, you'll regret this. Derek, hope your boyfriend knows he's next on your list. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I brewed coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. The glow of the screen felt like a shield. I typed an email to my bank. I'd like to begin the process of removing myself as co-signer on all active family accounts. Then another to the insurance company, another to the credit bureau. My fingers moved steady, mechanical. Every click was a reclaiming, every form a quiet act of defiance. The printer started humming behind me. Page after page slid out loan contracts, statements, credit histories. I highlighted my signature lines in yellow, organized everything into folders. The air smelled like hot paper and ink, like something being purified. At work, Nora peeked over the cubicle wall. Rough day, I smiled thinly. Just fixing some paperwork. She tilted her head. You look calmer than I've ever seen you. Yeah, I said. I think I finally stopped drowning. That evening, Liam found me cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by folders. He crouched beside me, reading the titles, Loan Release, Cosigner, Removal Account Closure. They'll hate you for this, he said softly. They already do, I replied. He touched my hand. You don't have to do it alone. I know I said, but I need to be the one to end it. The next day, I met with a loan officer at the downtown bank. His office was quiet, the air conditioning whispering. I slid the folder across his desk. I'd like to remove myself from every loan under the Allen family business and personal accounts, I said. He skimmed the papers, brows lifting. That's quite a list. I know. It may take a few days. The process isn't simple. I've done harder things, I told him. He studied me for a long moment. You sure about this? Families can ruin you too, I said. The sound of his stamp echoed in the small room like a gavel. For a second, I closed my eyes and just listened. It didn't sound like loss. It sounded like freedom. That night, I drove home through steady rain. The windshield wipers kept rhythm with my pulse. My phone buzzed in the passenger seat, Mom again, then Dad, then Derek. I turned the phone face down and let it ring. When I pulled into my parking lot, the city lights reflected off the wet pavement like broken glass. I sat there for a while, engine ticking, thinking about every version of myself that had said yes when she wanted to say no. Inside the apartment smelled like coffee and wet asphalt. I dropped the folders on the counter, poured a glass of water, and felt the smallest flicker of peace. The texts were still coming in, but they no longer sounded like authority. They sounded like panic. And for the first time, I realized chaos was just the sound of them losing control. 3 days later, they stopped pretending to be victims and started showing up. It was Saturday morning. Rain had just broken, leaving the air damp and silver. I'd been on the balcony with a cup of coffee when the buzzer sounded 2 short rings. Liam was still half asleep. I checked the camera feed and froze. My brother Derek stood outside the gate wearing a wrinkled suit jacket like armor. Behind him, our parents hovered. Mom held a folder. Dad's jaw was locked so tight the vein on his temple pulsed. I opened the door only halfway. You shouldn't be here. Derek smiled like a salesman. We just want to talk soft. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic, I repeated. You forged my name on an $80,000 loan. Dad's tone snapped. Watch your mouth. You're still our daughter. Funny I said you didn't sound so sure when you texted me to never come back. Mom stepped forward, voice trembling just enough to sound practiced. Honey, your father was angry. We all were. Families fight. But this, she held up the folder, this isn't how we fix things. Liam appeared beside me, quiet, solid. You need to leave, he said evenly. Dad ignored him, eyes locked on me. You think cutting ties makes you strong? You're destroying us, Sophia. The business is collapsing. We can't refinance without you. My chest tightened, but not from guilt, just from the weight of déjà vu. I'd heard these lines before word for word. Then maybe I said you should have learned to stand without my credit. Derek's calm facade cracked. You think you're better than us? Because you have a job. Because you date someone with money. Liam's voice stayed even. You're crossing a line. Stay out of this. Derek snapped. I turned fully toward him. You don't get to lecture me about lines. You crossed every one when you used me to keep your life afloat. He laughed, ugly and desperate. Oh, please. You loved being the hero. Don't pretend you didn't enjoy the praise. That one landed. Because once he'd been right. Once I had loved being the dependable one, the one who fixed things. I'd built my worth around being needed. But that love had rotted into resentment. I looked him dead in the eye. You're right, Derek. I did like saving you. But heroes stop showing up when they realize the people they're saving are the villains. His smirk faltered. Mom inhaled sharply. Dad's voice came low, dangerous. This isn't over. You'll regret humiliating your family. I felt my pulse steady. The only thing I regret, I said, is not walking away sooner. Liam reached for my hand, and together we closed the door. The sound of it clicking shut felt heavier than any slam. Outside, someone pounded once, then silence. For hours, the house stayed quiet. Then the emails started. A message from my father's lawyer, potential breach of co-signer responsibility. Immediate contact requested. One from the business bank account frozen pending verification. And finally, from Derek. You've ruined everything. Are you happy now? I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I opened the folder of stamped papers, proof that I'd already been released from every obligation. My name was clean. The next morning, I walked into the same bank. The loan officer recognized me, nodded politely. Everything went through, he said. You're officially off the accounts. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Thank you. As I turned to leave, I caught my reflection in the glass door. Same blazer, same posture, but something different in my eyes. Stillness. Outside, the sky had cleared. I called a cab, but before it arrived, my phone buzzed again. Mom's voice message. Sophia, please. You don't understand what you're doing. We can't survive this. You're punishing us for mistakes we've already paid for. I hit play once more just to make sure I'd heard her right. Punishing them. They drained my credit, my savings, my sanity, and the moment I said no, I became the villain. It would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. I forwarded the voicemail to my attorney, then blocked the number. That night, Liam cooked pasta. The apartment smelled like garlic and tomato. We ate in silence until he asked, "How does it feel?" I took a slow sip of wine, like breathing after years underwater. He smiled softly. "You look lighter." I wanted to believe that. But part of me still waited for the next blow, and it came sooner than I expected. The next afternoon, Nora from work messaged me, "Someone's waiting for you in the lobby." I stepped out of the elevator, heart hammering. Mom was there again, same folder, same trembling hands. "Honey," she said, standing too quickly, "please, sit with me." "I'm at work," I replied. "It'll take a minute." She opened the folder copies of the same documents I'd signed. "We spoke to a lawyer. He said you might still be liable. There are loopholes, but if you cooperate, we can fix it." I stared at her. "You went through my personal files," she hesitated. "We kept copies when you lived at home, just in case." The world tilted. "That's not just invasive," I said. "It's illegal." Her face hardened. "Don't be dramatic, Sophia. You're making this harder than it needs to be." I laughed sharp. "You mean harder than you need it to be?" I stood up. "We're done here." She reached for my arm. "You can't keep doing this. I already did." I walked away. My hands shook as the elevator doors closed, but my voice in my head stayed steady. They can't touch me anymore. That night I changed every password bank email credit. Every door they'd ever had a key to locked. The following week, silence fell. No calls, no messages, even the group chat died. For a while it felt too quiet, like the pause before a storm. Then the storm arrived. An email from a law firm with a name designed to intimidate Miller and Hastings Legal Group. Subject notice of potential financial obligation. I opened it. Vague language, no details, just enough to scare. I smiled. My attorney had already confirmed everything was finalized. They had nothing left. I replied with one line, "There will be no further contact. Send." That night, Liam and I toasted with cheap wine. To the end of chaos, he said. To the beginning of peace, I answered. For the first time, I believed it. But peace doesn't always announce itself quietly. Sometimes it comes disguised as fallout. A week later, a cousin messaged me on social media, "Hey, your mom's worried about you, says you're struggling." Then a woman from our old church texted, "Saw your dad at the store. He said you're unstable. Everyone's praying for you." I laughed, really laughed. The same people who'd branded me ungrateful were now painting me as broken. I blocked them all. That night, lying beside Liam, I realized something. They couldn't hurt me financially anymore, so they were trying to rewrite the story. But even that failed, because the people who mattered knew the truth. I turned toward him and whispered, "They lost their hold." He brushed his thumb over my cheek. "Then stop looking back." I did. The next morning, sunlight filled the room. My phone buzzed with one final message from an unknown number. "We saw you on the company site. Congratulations on your promotion. We're glad you're doing well." No name. But I knew. I deleted it without opening the photo attached. And that's when I felt it fully, the absence of fear. Not anger, not revenge, just peace. Winter turned to early spring before I noticed the quiet had stopped feeling strange. The mornings came soft and slow the way they're supposed to. I'd wake before my alarm brew coffee and listen to the city waking up, no buzzing phone, no knot in my stomach. My paycheck stretched the whole month for once. It felt foreign, almost guilty, to have money that belonged only to me. Weeks later, I heard through a mutual contact, Aunt Lorraine, the family's self-appointed messenger, that the Allens' house was listed for sale, pre-foreclosure. She texted a link like she was passing gossip, not ruin. I clicked it anyway. Photos of empty rooms, peeling wallpaper, and a for sale sign tilted in their front yard filled the screen. I waited for the guilt to hit. It didn't. What I felt instead was something gentler, quieter, a sort of mourning for the person I used to be, the daughter who thought love meant rescuing people who refused to swim. That evening, Liam found me on the couch, laptop still open to the listing. "They're losing the house," I said. He sat beside me, took the laptop from my hands, closed it. "It's not your job to save what they built on your back." I looked at him. "It's just... that house was everything to them, and nothing to you," he said softly. Later that night, as I brushed my teeth, an old memory surfaced, Dad writing, "You keep us together" on a birthday card when I was 16. Back then, it felt like praise. Now it felt like a warning. Glue doesn't last forever. It cracks when it's stretched too thin. A few days later, an email arrived from my mother. Subject line, "Please read." The tone was almost tender. She wrote that Dad's health was failing, that they just needed a little help to get back on their feet. She ended it with, "You're all we have left." For a moment, I almost replied. The old reflex kicked in, the urge to fix, to heal. But I stopped myself. Instead, I opened a new tab and donated the amount she'd asked for to a nonprofit that helped women escape financial abuse. Then I deleted her email. When I told Liam, he smiled. "You didn't destroy them," he said. "You just stopped saving them." I nodded, breathing in the quiet. And that's the only revenge that lasts. The next weekend, we walked through a park lined with blooming trees. The air smelled like rain and lilac. I watched sunlight spill through the branches, and for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis. I wasn't the glue anymore. I was the break. Spring settled in quietly the way peace does when it stops asking permission. The windows in our new apartment stayed open most days. The smell of coffee and rain mixed with the hum of traffic below. Liam cooked breakfast while I answered work emails from the balcony's sunlight on my hands. It wasn't extravagant, but it was hours paid for with no guilt attached. Sometimes I'd catch myself listening for the sound of my phone, expecting the old chime of crisis. It never came. And that silence, the one that used to scare me, had become proof that I'd finally broken the pattern. One night, as the city lights blinked like soft stars, Liam asked, "Do you ever miss them?" I thought for a long moment. I miss who I tried to be for them, but I don't miss them. He smiled. "Then you're free." I looked out at the skyline and whispered to myself, sometimes peace costs everything you thought was love, but it's worth it. If you've ever had to walk away from the people who kept you small just to feel whole again, you're not alone. Share your story below. And hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story that reminds you sometimes the quietest revenge is finally living well.
My name's Andrea Higgins. I'm 31, and if you told me a year ago that I'd be starting over from scratch, no job, no boyfriend, no plan, I would have laughed. Back then, my life looked picture perfect from the outside. A nice apartment downtown, a stable job in tech sales, a boyfriend everyone said was charming and ambitious. His name was Randy. We'd been together 3 years. I thought we were a team. He worked in marketing, creative, spontaneous, the kind of guy who could light up a dinner party with one story. I was the grounded one, the steady paycheck, the planner, the believer in long-term goals. I used to think our differences balanced each other. Now I know they only hid the cracks. Randy loved the idea of success, the look of it, the kind of man who followed influencer couples and called them inspirational. At first I thought it was harmless. We'd sit on the couch scrolling through travel vlogs while he'd joke, "That'll be us one day, babe." But slowly the jokes turned into expectations. He'd point out designer bags or cars and say, "You'd look amazing in that if we could afford it." The if always hung in the air. Still, I loved him. Enough to cover rent when his freelance gigs dried up. Enough to cook dinner after 12-hour shifts while he networked online. Enough to believe him when he said we'd build something together. Then the storm hit. It was early 2025. My company downsized. Whole departments gone overnight. I'd been there 5 years, built client relationships from scratch, and just like that, laid off. No severance. Just a polite email and a final paycheck. I remember walking home that night, clutching the box of my desk stuff photos, a mug, a stress ball, thinking, he'll understand. He knows how much I've given. When I walked through the door, Randy was scrolling on his phone. I forced a smile. "Hey, so, they cut half the sales team. I'm out. But it's temporary. I've got contacts. I'll bounce back." He didn't even look up right away. "You're kidding." "No, but it's fine. I already sent a few messages to you." He stood, tossed his phone on the couch, and frowned like my bad news had ruined his day. "Andrea, how are we supposed to live? You can't just lose your job and expect everything to stay the same." "I don't expect that. I just need a little time. You've had gaps before. Remember, I supported you." He scoffed. "That's different. I had potential. People wanted to work with me." "You're in sales if you're not selling, you're nothing." His words stung, but I stayed calm. "Randy, I've been paying most of our bills for months. You're acting like I'm dragging you down." He turned away, muttering, "Maybe you are." That night I cooked dinner anyway. Pasta with his favorite sauce. He didn't touch it, just stayed on his phone, texting. Days passed. I sent out resumes, took calls, tried to stay positive, but Randy's mood got colder. The way he looked at me changed, like I was an inconvenience, not a partner. One evening, I came home from a long interview. My heels ached, my voice was raw from rehearsing pitches. Randy was sitting on the couch scrolling again. His phone screen lit up with a notification, Sabrina. I froze for a second. I'd heard the name before, some collaborator from a brand event. I didn't say anything, but I didn't have to. He looked up with that practiced sigh of guilt. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. "About what?" "About us. I can't do this anymore. You've changed since you lost your job." "It's been 3 weeks," I said quietly. "I'm trying to rebuild." "Yeah, but it's not just that." He looked me up and down, his voice icy. "You smell like failure, Andrea. Like stress and takeout and desperation." For a second, I thought I misheard. Who says that to someone they love? "I'm sorry, what?" "Look, I need someone who pushes me forward, not drags me into their problems. Sabrina gets that. She's building something exciting, not just surviving." He said it so casually, like he was talking about upgrading a phone. I just stood there numb, no yelling, no begging, just silence. "If that's how you see me," I finally said, "then I guess I've already outgrown you." I packed my bag, laptop, clothes, a single frame photo I couldn't yet throw away. Randy didn't move, didn't even ask me to stay. As I opened the door, he muttered almost proudly, "You'll come crawling back when you realize no one wants a broke girl." I turned to him, my voice steady. No one worth loving would ever say that. Then I left. Rain had started to fall outside, light but cold. It hit my cheeks like tiny slaps, washing away the warmth of that apartment of us. Each step away from him hurt, but it also felt like breathing after holding my breath for too long. That was the last night I ever heard his voice, at least for a while. The morning after I left Randy's apartment, I sat in my car for nearly an hour, engine off, just staring at the foggy windshield. My suitcase was in the passenger seat, my resume folder on top of it. My whole life fit into that tiny space. It's strange how quiet the world feels when the noise of someone's judgment finally stops. I checked my phone, nothing. No, come back, no, I'm sorry, not even a goodbye, just silence. That silence became my companion for the next few weeks. I rented a tiny studio on the edge of the city, thin walls, flickering light, and a view of the neighboring laundry line. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I'd lost count of the nights I cried on that worn-out mattress, replaying Randy's words in my head. You smell like failure. At first, I thought he'd cool off, realize what he'd said, maybe reach out. But days turned into weeks, and instead of an apology, I saw his new chapter unfold online. Photos of Randy and Sabrina, perfect lighting. Champagne glasses, captions about new beginnings. The same phrases he once used with me. My chest burned when I saw it, not just from jealousy, but from disbelief. The same man who once said he couldn't afford dinner was now posting pictures at rooftop bars. I stared at those pictures long enough to memorize the fake smiles. It was cinematic if you were into horror. I deleted my social media accounts that night. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much. Every scroll felt like reopening a wound. Without the distraction, reality hit harder. Bills, job rejections, loneliness. One afternoon, I found myself standing in front of a mirror I'd brought from our old apartment. It was cracked from the move. I whispered to my reflection, "You're not broken, you're just editing." That became my mantra. I filled my days with job applications and freelance gigs, anything to stay afloat. Some days I'd deliver packages or edit marketing copy late into the night. On others, I'd stare at my inbox, wondering if I'd made a mistake by walking away. But deep down, I knew even if I went back, I'd never respect myself again. Still, he haunted me, his voice, his scent, his arrogance. Then came the final blow. A mutual friend, Jake, called one evening. "Hey, Andrea, I know you don't want to hear this, but Randy and Sabrina are engaged. Just thought you should know before you see it online." I didn't cry. Not that night. I just laughed. A dry, exhausted sound that didn't even feel like mine. Engaged already, good for them. But after I hung up, I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, whispering to the quiet room, "She doesn't know what she's getting." That was the last time I allowed myself to cry over him. The next morning, I packed away everything that reminded me of us. His hoodie, his mug, the photo from our last vacation. I placed them all in a small box, sealed it with tape, and wrote one word on top: done. I dropped it off at a donation center. The volunteer didn't even ask what was inside, just smiled and said, "Starting fresh." I nodded. Trying to. That night, I poured myself a glass of cheap red wine and watched the city lights flicker outside my window. Somewhere, Randy was probably toasting with champagne. But I realized something important. I didn't envy his life anymore. I pitied it. Because people like him don't really change. They just find new stages to perform on. And while he was busy performing, I was learning how to live without an audience. The next morning, I wrote 3 words on a sticky note and placed it on my wall: no more crumbs. No more settling for less than love. No more waiting for someone to value me. No more believing that success comes from who stands beside me. It comes from who I become. As I drifted off to sleep that night, a quiet peace settled in. For the first time in months, I wasn't replaying what he said. I was imagining what I'd say to him if he ever came back. And the words were simple: too late. The silence that used to feel like punishment slowly became my peace. 2 months after the breakup, I'd adjusted to my small studio. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. The kind of place where you could hear your neighbor's TV through the wall, but also hear your own thoughts for the first time in years. My routine became my lifeline. Mornings started early: black coffee, a jog around the cracked sidewalks. Job boards open by 8 a.m. At first, the rejections hurt. Each we've decided to move forward with another candidate chipped away at my confidence. But little by little, I stopped taking them personally. I began treating every no as redirection, not rejection. When I wasn't job hunting, I took free online courses in digital marketing and coding skills I'd once helped Randy brag about. Funny how the things I used to do to support his dreams were now the tools rebuilding mine. There were bad days too. Some mornings I couldn't even get out of bed. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling fan, thinking about how one sentence, "you smell like failure," could unravel years of trust. On those days, I forced myself to move. I'd open my laptop, put on soft music, and type random thoughts just to remind myself I still had a voice. Eventually, those thoughts turned into journal entries, therapy sessions on paper. Then one day, I made it real. I walked into a community mental health clinic, nervous but determined. The therapist, a calm woman with kind eyes, asked, "What made you decide to come today?" I smiled weakly. Because I got tired of pretending I was fine. That first session hurt. I had to say things out loud. I'd been avoiding the humiliation, the loneliness, the quiet shame of being discarded. But she said something that stuck with me. Healing isn't about getting even, Andrea. It's about getting real. You can't rebuild while still living in someone else's story. That sentence hit me harder than Randy's insult ever did. So I started writing a new story, my own. I got a part-time remote consulting gig for a small company. It didn't pay much, but it was enough to stop counting every dollar. Every payday felt like a tiny victory. To celebrate my first invoice, I bought myself flowers, cheap supermarket daisies, but I arranged them like a bouquet. For the first time in forever, I smiled just for me. And slowly the ache faded. Sometimes I'd hear Randy's name floating through mutual friends' conversations, mostly in passing. I pretended not to care, but deep down curiosity flickered. I told myself not to check, but one sleepless night I did. His social media was exactly what I expected. Expensive dinners, rooftop photos, Sabrina on his arm, all filtered perfection. But beneath the gloss, something felt off. The captions tried too hard. The smiles strained. A comment here and there. Didn't that company fold? Where's the product launch? I scrolled through the comments until guilt forced me to stop. I closed the app and whispered, "Not your circus anymore." Still, I couldn't shake a strange feeling like a quiet shift in the air. The next morning, I got an unexpected email from Jake, our old mutual friend. "Hey, Andrea, just checking in. You seem to be doing great. By the way, have you heard what's going on with Randy's new business?" My heart skipped. I didn't respond. Not yet. But that one question lingered all day. What was going on with Randy? I didn't know it then, but the karma I thought I'd let go of was already on its way. And for once, I didn't have to do anything but keep living. It started as whispers, little fragments of gossip that slipped into my inbox or surfaced in mutual chats. At first, I ignored them. I was busy between freelancing gigs, therapy, and rebuilding my confidence. I didn't have time for the ghost of a man who once told me I smelled like failure. But the whispers grew louder. One message from Jake read, "You won't believe this Randy's startup is getting called out online. Something about fake investors and unpaid partners." I almost didn't click the link he sent. Curiosity won. There it was, an expose thread with screenshots and angry comments. Randy's company, the one he'd bragged about to everyone, was a hollow front. He and Sabrina had been promising high-yield collaborations through an influencer platform that didn't even exist. The comments were brutal scam fraud, avoid these two at all costs. My heart didn't race, it slowed, because this wasn't schadenfreude, it was confirmation. He hadn't outgrown me. He'd just found a new stage to fail on. I closed the tab, stared at my reflection in the laptop screen, and whispered, "You built your empire on lies, Randy, and it's finally cracking." Over the next few weeks, the story unfolded like poetic justice. First came the legal threats, small-time investors demanding refunds, a lawsuit from a local brand they'd duped. Then the partnership posts vanished. Sabrina's social media turned quiet, her captions replaced by vague mental health break statements. Eventually, the photos of Randy and Sabrina disappeared entirely. But the internet never forgets. Someone leaked screenshots of Randy's texts, angry, controlling, condescending. It was eerie reading his words to her, echoes of how he once spoke to me. "You're embarrassing me. Do better next time. I can't be around failure." The same poison just poured into a new cup. One night, while washing dishes, I caught myself thinking about Sabrina. I wanted to hate her, but I didn't. She was just another person who'd fallen for the same charm I once mistook for ambition. People like Randy didn't love, they consumed. Weeks passed and the gossip subsided, but not before one final update reached me. Jake sent another message. "He's gone, Andrea. Moved out of the condo. Word is he's broke. Sabrina kicked him out after finding out he'd used her credit to pay off his debts." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "I hope he finds peace, far away from me." And I meant it. That evening, I went for a walk through the city park, earbuds in hands tucked into my coat pockets. The air was cool, crisp, the kind of night that smells like rain and renewal. A couple passed by laughing, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel that familiar pang of envy. I just felt free. I sat on a bench overlooking the fountain, the city lights shimmering on the water, and took a deep breath. He once said I smelled like failure, but failure has its own scent, one he'll never recognize. It smells like rain on new soil, like resilience after heartbreak, like freedom. I smiled to myself, realizing I didn't need revenge. Life had already taken care of that for me. By the time winter rolled around, Randy had become nothing more than a ghost story, I told myself, when I needed proof that walking away had been the right choice. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. I'd landed a full-time consulting contract with a small but growing firm. My days were full, my nights quiet. I'd even started sleeping through them again. Then one Thursday morning, while I was making coffee, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Unknown. Hey, it's Randy. Can we talk? I froze the mug halfway to my lips. 6 months of silence, and he appears like nothing happened. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. A week later, a new number popped up. Unknown. Andrea, please don't ignore me. I made a mistake. I need to explain. Delete. Another week, another number. Unknown. Mark ruined everything. I should have never left you. You were the only one who truly cared. I frowned. Mark. Then I remembered Sabrina's real name for her ex was Marcus, the shady business partner Randy had once mentioned. So the empire that imploded wasn't just his. He'd been dragged down with someone worse. Still, I stayed silent. But silence didn't stop him. Voicemails followed. His voice was slower now, heavier. I listened to one out of morbid curiosity. Andrea, I know I said awful things. I didn't mean them. I was under pressure. Sabrina. She turned out to be controlling, jealous. She used me. Please, can we start over? I've changed. He always said that when he wanted something, I've changed. I deleted the voicemail and kept living. But a few nights later, someone knocked on my door. 3 sharp knocks. The kind that make your stomach drop before your mind catches up. When I peeked through the peephole, I almost didn't recognize him. Randy, hair disheveled, eyes tired, shoulders slumped under a worn jacket. Gone was the polished man with expensive watches and smug smiles. This version looked defeated. I opened the door just enough to speak. What do you want, Randy? He tried to smile, but his lips trembled. To talk, please, just 5 minutes. I crossed my arms. You had 3 years. You used them to humiliate me. I was stupid, he said softly. Sabrina destroyed everything. She stole money from the company, left me with debt. I lost everything, Andrea. My friends, my home, my reputation. But you... I'm not your safety net, I cut in. You didn't lose me, Randy. You threw me away. He swallowed, hard eyes glassy. I didn't mean that failure comment. You have to believe me. I don't, I said, because I don't need to. He looked at me like he didn't recognize the person standing before him. You were always the calm one, he murmured. Now you sound cold. No, I said steady. I sound done. I started to close the door, but he stepped forward, desperation flaring. Andrea, please. I've hit rock bottom. I need someone who believes in me again. For a second, I almost pitied him until I remembered standing in our old apartment holding my pink slip while he told me I smelled like failure. That pity vanished. You're looking for forgiveness, I said quietly. But what you really want is comfort. And that's not my job anymore. He blinked, stunned. So that's it. That's it. I shut the door. He knocked again once, twice, then silence. I slid down against the door, exhaling the kind of breath that felt like years leaving my chest. Later that night, I checked my email. There it was, one last attempt. Subject. You're the only person who ever saw the real me. Message. Please don't give up on us. I can be better. I didn't reply. I archived it. Then I blocked every new address that came after. And when he started using mutual friends to reach me, messages like, be the bigger person, Andrea, he's suffering, I muted them all. Suffering is the price of realizing too late that decency can't be replaced. The truth was, I didn't hate him. I just no longer needed him. And that, I realized, was what freedom actually felt like. By the time spring came around, I had everything. I once begged life for stability, peace, and a version of happiness that didn't depend on anyone's approval. I'd been promoted to a senior consultant role at my firm. My clients respected me. My paycheck finally reflected the effort I'd been pouring into my work for years. I'd even started dating again, nothing rushed, just someone kind. His name was Liam, a quiet, grounded architect with the same calm energy I used to give to people who never appreciated it. For the first time in forever, I wasn't surviving. I was living. Then came the night of Jake's engagement party. He'd been one of the few friends who stayed neutral after the breakup, never gossiping, never taking sides. When his invitation arrived, handwritten and warm, I knew I wanted to go. The venue was elegant, all soft lighting, clinking glasses, and live jazz that made conversations hum in rhythm. Liam held my hand as we entered. I wore a dark emerald dress, simple but elegant, and for the first time I didn't feel the need to prove anything. People greeted me warmly. Some even said, "Andrea, you look incredible. I heard about your promotion, congrats." Compliments felt different now. They didn't feed my ego. They affirmed my peace. Halfway through the evening, I was laughing with a small group near the bar when the air changed, that strange static of recognition. Someone whispered my name softly, Andrea. I turned and there he was. Randy. I didn't recognize him at first. The crisp, confident man I once loved was gone. His suit was slightly rumpled hair, unkempt smile, hollow. He looked older, not in years, but in spirit. He forced a smile. Wow, you look amazing. It's been a while. I smiled politely. It has. How have you been? He hesitated. His eyes darted toward Liam, who extended a polite nod before excusing himself to grab drinks. Randy stepped closer, lowering his voice. Can we talk just for a minute, please? I hesitated, then followed him a few steps aside, far enough to avoid a scene, close enough to keep it short. He took a breath. Seeing you here, it hit me how much I ruined. Andrea, I'm sorry. For everything. The way I treated you, the things I said I was stupid. I thought success meant having more, but I didn't realize I already had what mattered. I studied him. His eyes were glassy, a mix of regret and desperation. You told me I smelled like failure, I said softly. He winced, looking away. I know, I was an idiot. I didn't mean it. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Then why are you here, Randy? He hesitated, then exhaled. Because I'm lost. Everything's gone. The company, the money, Sabrina, all of it. I see you now thriving, and I can't stop thinking that maybe there's still a chance. I laughed not cruelly, but genuinely because it was absurd. A chance for what? For you to ruin me again. His jaw tensed. No, I've changed. You've adapted, I corrected. Changing means you understand what you did. Adapting means you just found a new mask. His face fell. You really don't believe people can change. I do, I said, but not for the same reasons that broke them. For a long moment we stood there in silence. The music played softly in the background, the sound of a life he no longer belonged to. Finally, he whispered, You've become cold, Andrea. I smiled faintly. No, Randy, I've become whole. He swallowed hard. So that's it? That's it? He nodded slowly, realizing the conversation was over. I really did love you, he said, almost pleading. Then you should have treated me like it, I replied. And with that, I turned and walked back toward Liam, who greeted me with a calm smile and a glass of champagne. As we toasted to Jake's happiness, I caught a glimpse of Randy standing alone at the edge of the crowd, his reflection fractured in the ballroom mirrors. He'd once said I smelled like failure. Now all I could smell on him was desperation, and it didn't suit him. The next morning, sunlight poured through my apartment window, soft, golden, warm. The kind of light that doesn't ask for attention, it just exists. Peaceful, quiet. I stood barefoot in my kitchen, sipping coffee, still replaying last night in my mind. The look on Randy's face when I walked away. The silence that followed. The way it didn't hurt anymore. For so long I thought closure meant hearing I'm sorry, but now I understood real closure comes when you stop needing it. Randy was gone, not just from my life, but from the part of my mind that used to ache for his approval. I walked over to my balcony, the same spot where I'd once cried, into takeout containers, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. The same view that used to look small now felt infinite. Below the city buzzed morning traffic laughter, life moving forward, mine included. I smiled, watching the light catch on the leaves of my little potted plant, a gift from Liam. It had almost died once when I forgot to water it during my low days. Now it was thriving, resilient, kind of like me. I thought about everything that had happened in the past year, the humiliation, the heartbreak, the rebuilding. The woman who once let someone define her worth had become someone who didn't need validation to feel valuable. And the irony wasn't lost on me. He said I smelled like failure, but failure turned out to be the best perfume I ever wore. Because failure meant I tried. It meant I cared. It meant I risked loving someone who didn't deserve it and came out stronger anyway. Failure taught me where my boundaries are. It taught me that love without respect is just a beautiful cage. And most importantly, it taught me that walking away isn't weakness. It's freedom with a heartbeat. I grabbed my phone and typed a short message to my therapist. Thank you. I finally get it. She replied with a single heart emoji. I smiled, set the phone down, and opened my laptop to start work. A new client had reached out that morning, another small business that wanted to grow online. Funny, I used to help people chase image. Now I help them build something real. As I typed, the world outside glowed brighter. I leaned back in my chair, breathing in the smell of coffee rain and new beginnings. Freedom doesn't have a price tag. It doesn't sparkle like gold or scream for attention. It smells like quiet mornings, like clean sheets and laughter you don't have to fake, like forgiveness not for others, but for yourself. I once built my life around someone who thought success was about money and status. Now I build mine around peace. And peace, I've learned, has its own scent, the scent of freedom. My name is Christina Hamilton, and I'm 35 years old. A year ago, I thought I had the kind of marriage people envied, steady, loyal, built on trust. Today, when I think about it all, I see are the cracks I kept patching while pretending they weren't there. It started like most love stories that fool you into believing forever is real. I met Ryan at a friend's backyard barbecue. He was the funny one telling bad jokes with a confidence that made everyone laugh anyway. I was 25, cautious, but drawn to his warmth. We bonded over burnt ribs, bad karaoke, and his hopeless attempts at grilling. By the end of the night, I was hooked. Ryan chased big dreams. He wanted to start his own media company, Travel Be Someone. I admired that. I, on the other hand, was the organized one steady job in HR, family-oriented, the planner to his whirlwind. We balanced each other, or so I thought. When he got an offer in another state to launch a new branch, I didn't hesitate. I left my stable career, took a pay cut for a remote position, and followed him. Love means compromise, I told myself. Except in our story, compromise slowly became a one-way street. I did everything, handled the bills, made sure our dog Cooper got his walks, kept the house running while he chased deadlines. When he came home tired, I had dinner ready, listening to him complain about clients who didn't get his vision. I didn't mind. I thought that's what partners do, carry each other when one stumbles. But somewhere along the line, Ryan stopped stumbling. He started drifting. It was subtle at first. He'd scroll his phone through dinner, smiling at messages he wouldn't share. When I asked what was so funny, he'd shrug it off. Just a meme from an old friend. Then came the nights he worked late, coming home with a faint trace of perfume that wasn't mine. I told myself not to be paranoid. He'd never cheat. We were solid. Except we weren't. He started bringing up his college years again, stories about the good old days, names I didn't know. One name came up more than the rest, Melissa. Apparently she was his best friend in college, the one who understood him better than anyone. He'd laugh about how wild they were back then, how they once got lost driving to a music festival and ended up sleeping in the car under the stars. Every time he said her name, there was a softness in his voice I hadn't heard in years. I ignored the alarm bells. After all, Melissa was just part of his past. Until one Friday evening when his past decided to crash into my present. It was a quiet night. The city lights outside our apartment flickered softly against the window. Cooper was curled up on the rug. I had made Ryan's favorite dinner, pasta with roasted garlic and wine sauce. I wanted to reconnect, to feel like us again. Ryan walked in freshly showered, wearing a new shirt I'd never seen. He looked different, restless. He sat at the table, pushing food around his plate like it offended him. Then casually, as if he was commenting on the weather, he said, "Melissa's in town. She's staying at the Royalton downtown. I'm going to see her tonight." I blinked. "You mean for coffee?" He met my eyes, steady, almost rehearsed. "No, I'm staying with her for a few days. We just want to see if the spark is still there." For a moment, the world went silent. The clock on the wall ticked once, loud, mocking. "You're going to stay with her, as in sleep with her?" My voice came out small, not angry, yet just disbelieving. He exhaled, annoyed. "Don't make it sound so cheap, Christina. I'm being honest about it. I need to know if what we had, Melissa and I, was real. We've been married 8 years, but lately it's stale. You're comfortable, predictable. I want to feel alive again." My stomach twisted. Predictable. That word hit harder than betrayal itself. "So what?" I whispered. "You'll test your chemistry with another woman, and if it doesn't work, you'll come home to your wife like nothing happened." He had the nerve to nod. "Exactly. I'm not leaving you forever, Christina. I just need clarity. It's not cheating, if I'm honest." Not cheating. The audacity of that logic almost made me laugh. For a few seconds, I watched him, the man I had built a life around, now speaking to me, like I was a safety net, not a person. I felt something shift inside me, a quiet snap that was both painful and liberating. "Then follow your heart," I said softly. He frowned. That's it. You're not going to stop me. No, I said, standing up. My voice didn't shake. If your heart belongs somewhere else, I'm not going to compete with it. Have a good trip, Ryan. I picked up Cooper's leash and walked out before he could answer. The night air hit my face cool and clean, almost kind. I could hear my heartbeat calm but sharp, like the first breath after drowning. Cooper trotted beside me, unaware that our lives had just changed. Behind me in that apartment filled with all the years I'd given Ryan packed his suitcase to chase an illusion. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt free. Because he wasn't the only one making a decision that night. He thought he was leaving to find his spark, but I was about to show him what freedom feels like. The door clicked behind him, and that tiny sound echoed louder than any argument we ever had. Ryan had left, not just for the night, but for something he called clarity. Cooper looked up at me, tail wagging hesitantly, as if asking whether we were going for another walk. I knelt down beside him, burying my fingers in his fur, trying to ground myself. The air felt heavy. The apartment, our home, suddenly looked foreign, like a hotel room after checkout. I sat at the table, staring at 2 plates of pasta, mine untouched, his half finished. His wine glass still had the imprint of his lips. Everything felt staged, like a cruel joke no one told me I was part of. The clock ticked past midnight. I was still there, frozen in that same chair. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream, throw the plates, shatter something to make the pain real. But instead, I just sat. My body was calm, too calm. My mind played his words over and over like a scratched record. It's not cheating if I'm honest. I need to see if the spark is still there. You're predictable. Predictable. I whispered it to myself, the syllables tasting bitter. I'd traded pieces of my life to build a world with him. And somehow he'd turned that loyalty into boredom. Around 1 a.m., I called Nina, my best friend since high school. She answered on the 3rd ring, groggy, but alert when she heard my voice. Christina, what's wrong? I laughed, this short, broken sound that didn't feel like me. He's gone. What do you mean gone? Ryan. He left to stay at a hotel with his soulmate from college. Says he wants to see if the spark's still there. There was silence then, an incredulous, he said that out loud, to your face. Mm-hmm. I sipped cold wine, staring blankly at the wall. Apparently, it's not cheating if he's honest about it. Nina swore under her breath. You want me to come over? I hesitated, glancing at the locked door at Cooper sleeping by my feet. No, stay home. I think I need to sit in this for a bit. She was quiet for a moment. Then her voice softened. Christina, listen to me. Don't beg him. Don't chase him. You've already done more for that man than he ever deserved. I know. My voice cracked just once. I just didn't realize how much I was carrying until he dropped it all. Then let it fall, Nina said. And when morning comes, pick yourself instead. After we hung up, I walked through the apartment, turning off lights one by one. The place felt like a museum of my marriage, pictures of vacations, the home sweet home, sign I'd bought after we moved, in the souvenir mugs we collected from road trips. Each object whispered, remember when. At 2 a.m., I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't plan it, it just happened. My fingers moved faster than my thoughts. I typed an email to my cousin Caroline, who was an attorney. Subject urgent. Need help with divorce papers. Hey, Caro. I know it's late, but I need to file for divorce. Tomorrow morning, if possible. Don't call me tonight. I'm fine. Just need this done quietly. I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I opened another tab. I started transferring money from our joint account to my personal one. It wasn't spite, it was self-preservation. I wasn't going to wake up broke because he needed to find himself in someone else's bed. By 3 a.m., I finally crawled into bed, still in the same dress I'd worn at dinner. The sheets smelled like garlic and his cologne, sweet, nauseating, haunting. I turned to Cooper, curled at my feet, and whispered, It's just us now, buddy. He wagged his tail once and sighed. Morning came quietly. The sunlight through the blinds felt cruel, too warm for a house that had gone cold. I made coffee. I didn't drink, opened the window, and stared at the street below. It was strange how the world just kept moving. People went to work. Kids waited for buses. Birds sang like nothing had happened. At exactly 10:17 a.m., Caroline texted. Filed. Process server will deliver the papers today. You sure you don't want to talk first? I replied. I'm sure. A strange peace settled over me. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't even relief. It was quiet power. The kind that comes when you finally stop waiting for someone to choose you. That afternoon, I parked my car 2 blocks from the Royalton Hotel. I didn't know why I needed to see it happen. Maybe closure, maybe proof that I wasn't imagining all of this. Through the wide glass doors, I could see Ryan at the front desk checking in. Melissa was beside him, tall blonde, her laugh a little too loud. She touched his arm like she owned it. He looked proud. A lump rose in my throat, but I didn't look away. Then a man in a gray suit walked past me and entered the hotel lobby, a thick envelope in hand. He approached the front desk, said Ryan's name, and handed him the papers. I saw Ryan's face freeze. Melissa frowned. The clerk looked awkward. The man in gray nodded once, turned, and left. Process served. I exhaled slowly, gripping the steering wheel. Somewhere inside, Ryan was probably shouting, confused, calling it overreaction or drama. But I didn't care. He could call it whatever he wanted. I just called it done. As I drove away, the hotel shrank in my rearview mirror until it disappeared completely. That night, I poured the leftover wine into the sink, washed the dishes, and fed Cooper. The apartment was still quiet, but this time the silence didn't feel like loss. It felt like space. For the first time in years, it was mine. He thought I'd sit and wait while he searched for a spark. But by the time he realized what he'd lost, I'd already lit my own fire. The next few weeks felt like waking up after a long illness. Everything a little blurry, fragile, but alive. Ryan never came home. Not that I expected him to. After the papers were served, the silence between us became permanent. He tried calling twice. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, the second time a half-hearted attempt at logic. Christina, come on. Divorce. That's extreme. I just needed space. You're overreacting. Overreacting. That word sealed everything. I deleted the message and blocked his number. I wasn't going to explain my worth to the man who traded it for nostalgia. The following Monday, I started working from the living room instead of our shared office. I couldn't stand seeing his empty chair. The space still smelled faintly like his cologne and burnt coffee. Cooper became my anchor. Every morning we walked down to the park before sunrise. At first it was just habit, but slowly those walks turned into therapy. I'd breathe in the cool air, watch the city wake up, and remind myself you're still here. Nina came over that weekend with pastries and a fierce look on her face. I saw his Facebook, she said, biting into a croissant. He's posting pictures with her. Melissa. A hotel pool selfie. Caption says, reconnecting with old energy. I smiled faintly, stirring my coffee. Good for him. Let him manifest his disaster. Nina laughed. You're taking this scarily well. I already mourned it while he was still here, I said quietly. Now I'm just cleaning the ashes. And that's what it felt like, burned ruins, but my own to rebuild. I made small changes first. Repainted the bedroom, moved the bed to the opposite wall, boxed up his things, and left them by the door for a courier. Then I opened a new savings account. Then I updated my resume. Each action was a stitch closing a wound I hadn't realized was so deep. There were lonely nights, of course. Nights when I'd reach for my phone before remembering there was no one to text goodnight. But even those moments carried a strange kind of peace, the kind that comes when you stop begging for crumbs and start feeding yourself. A month passed before karma started whispering back. It came through a mutual friend, Lydia, one of those people who thrived on gossip but pretended it was concern. She called me one morning out of nowhere. Christina, you didn't hear this from me, but Ryan's new relationship is falling apart. I froze mid-sip. I didn't even know it was public. Oh, it's very public now. Melissa's husband. Yes, husband found out about the affair. Apparently she was never divorced. He confronted Ryan at some hotel restaurant. It was messy. I blinked, trying not to smile. She's married. Lydia sighed dramatically. Married. And not just that she's been using Ryan to make her husband jealous. The guy posted screenshots. Whole thing went viral in their friend circle. The schadenfreude was almost too rich to digest. So what's Ryan doing now? Trying to save face. Says he was manipulated. Lost a few clients too. Someone leaked that he'd been using company money for their little getaways. I leaned back in my chair, letting the information wash over me. I didn't say I was happy, but I couldn't deny the quiet satisfaction blooming somewhere deep inside. Karma didn't need my help. It was doing just fine on its own. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, not to numb the pain, but to toast the peace that followed it. I stood by the window watching the city lights blink below the same skyline that once felt suffocating, now wide and alive again. I thought about Ryan and Melissa, somewhere out there, two people chasing sparks only to end up burned. And me, I was learning that peace doesn't roar. It hums quietly when you finally let go. Over the next month, I started rebuilding from the ground up. I accepted a promotion offer I'd turned down years ago, remote management for a bigger team, higher pay, more autonomy. My boss said, "You've changed lately." In a good way. He was right, I had. I stopped apologizing for taking up space, stopped minimizing my feelings, stopped loving people who needed me small. Even Cooper seemed lighter. He ran faster, barked louder like he could feel it too. I still had moments of grief, like when I found an old photo of us laughing on a beach, or when I heard his favorite song in a cafe. But instead of breaking, I let it pass through me like a memory of someone I used to be. That night, I journaled for the first time in years. I wrote, "He said the spark was gone, but maybe the spark was always mine. He just mistook it for his reflection." Weeks turned into months, and just when I thought Ryan had disappeared for good, karma decided to show me one more act. Lydia texted again, this time with a screenshot. Ryan had posted a vague, somber update. "Sometimes the people you think are your destiny are just your lesson." The comments were brutal. Old colleagues dragged him for hypocrisy. Someone wrote, "Guess, Melissa taught you that lesson the hard way. Another should have appreciated your wife instead of your midlife crisis." I laughed until I cried. Not because it was funny, but because it was finally over. The universe had handled what I couldn't. I didn't reply, didn't screenshot it to Nina, didn't even save it. I just whispered thank you to no one in particular and turned off my phone. By spring, I had moved to a new apartment overlooking the river. Lighter walls, wide windows, and the sound of life outside. Sometimes I'd stand on the balcony at night and watch the reflections shimmer on the water, feeling the rhythm of my new life settle in. I wasn't waiting for closure anymore. I had created it myself. And deep down, I knew this piece wasn't the end of my story. It was the intermission right before the ghost from my past would come knocking again. It started with a text, midnight on a Tuesday. "Christina, can we talk?" I think I made a huge mistake. I stared at the glowing screen, my thumb hovering above the message. The same man who told me I was predictable now missed my stability. The same man who packed a suitcase for someone else's bed was suddenly nostalgic for mine. I didn't reply. I deleted it, locked my phone, and went back to sleep. The next morning, there were 3 missed calls, then 5, then 10. By noon, a voicemail. I shouldn't have listened, but curiosity got the better of me. "Christina, and it's me. I don't even know where to start. Melissa wasn't who I thought she was. She lied about everything. She's gone now. I realize what I gave up. You were my real home. Please just talk to me." There it was, the same voice that once sounded like comfort, now dripping with regret. But the funny thing about regret, it always shows up after the damage is irreversible. I didn't call back. I didn't even feel anger anymore, just a calm, heavy silence. By the 3rd day, he escalated. Emails, long, rambling paragraphs about how we could start fresh, how he was in therapy now working on himself, how he finally understood my worth. I rolled my eyes and hit delete. Then came the family. His mother called first. She'd always liked me until her son needed defending. "Christina, he's suffering," she said in that guilt-laced tone only mothers of grown men can master. "He made a mistake, but marriage is about forgiveness." "Forgiveness," I repeated softly. "You mean like how he forgave me when I didn't do anything wrong?" She faltered. "You can't just throw away years like that." "I didn't throw them away," I said. "He did. I'm just refusing to dig through the trash for them." Click, call ended. The next day, his sister texted, "He's miserable, Christina. Everyone makes mistakes. Don't be so cold." Cold. That word again. As if self-respect were frostbite. I blocked the number. The following weekend, I was cleaning when Cooper started barking at the door. I glanced at the clock, 7 p.m. No deliveries expected. Then I froze. That voice. "Christina, it's me. Please open up." Ryan. For a split second, my body betrayed me. My pulse spiked, muscles tensed. Old reflexes. Then logic took over. I walked calmly to the door, unlocked the chain, and opened it just enough to see him. He looked nothing like the man I married. His once pressed shirts replaced by wrinkled sweats. His hair unkempt, his face tired pale. He was holding a cardboard box stuffed from our old apartment. "Hey," he said, forcing a shaky smile. "Thought I should return these." I crossed my arms. "You could have mailed them." "I needed to see you," he said, quickly stepping closer. "Please, Christina, just let me explain." Explain what I asked, my voice steady. That the fantasy wasn't as exciting as you hoped, that the spark burned out faster than you thought it would. His shoulders slumped. "I messed up. Melissa lied about everything. She's married broke and she used me. I lost my job. My reputation's trashed. But I don't care about that. I just want you back. I almost laughed. You don't care that your life fell apart. Of course you don't. You expect me to rebuild it for you like I always did. That's not fair, he said, his voice cracking. I loved you. I still do. I took a slow breath. Then why did you leave? He hesitated. I thought I was missing something. I thought passion was supposed to feel different. I stepped closer, eyes cold but calm. You were missing something, Ryan. Gratitude. He blinked. Christina, please. You said our marriage was stale, that I was predictable. Do you have any idea how cruel that was? I sacrificed everything to build a life around you, and you called it boring. You don't get to crawl back because your adventure turned into a nightmare. His voice cracked, desperate now. I'm begging you. I'll go to therapy. I'll prove it. Just don't throw us away. Us, I whispered. There's no us. You killed that the night you packed your suitcase. Tears welled in his eyes. He reached out, fingers trembling. You can't mean that. I stepped back, closing the door halfway. I do. You didn't lose me, Ryan. You gave me away. The click of the lock was the loudest sound in the world. He pounded once, twice. Fine. Be alone. Then he shouted, voice muffled. You'll regret this, Christina. You're nothing without me. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood and whispered, That's where you're wrong. The knocking stopped eventually. The hallway went silent. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. Instead, I picked up Cooper, sat on the couch, and let the peace settle in. That night, I slept like I hadn't in months. But Ryan wasn't done trying. Over the next few weeks, he tried everything. Emails, mutual friends, fake emergencies. Each attempt more pathetic than the last. One message read, I miss the smell of your coffee in the mornings. Another, I can't believe you've turned into this person. You used to have empathy. I didn't respond to any of them. Because empathy without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-destruction. When he realized I wasn't budging, his tone changed. The pleading stopped. The guilt-tripping started. I hope you're happy ruining 2 lives. My mom's sick over this. You should be ashamed. You'll see. No one else will ever love you like I did. He was right, no one would love me like that. Because what he called love, I called possession. A few weeks later, Nina came over again. She looked at me sipping tea with a faint smirk. You've changed, Christina. I smiled. Good. You really won't talk to him again, she asked. No, I said simply. I closed that door and I don't reopen closed doors, especially not ones that lead back into fire. She grinned. Remind me never to cross you. Don't cheat on me with your college soulmate and you'll be fine. We both laughed, the sound light effortless. That night, as I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker below, I realized something profound. Closure doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you stop needing one. Ryan was just a ghost now, a shadow from a story I'd already outgrown. The same door he walked out of as a husband, I'd closed on him as a stranger. And for the first time, I was free not from him, but from the version of myself that still waited for him to come home. A full year passed before I saw him again. By then, I'd built a new life, one that didn't revolve around waiting, pleasing, or explaining. I'd moved to a smaller apartment with a balcony overlooking the river, taken up morning runs, and even started painting again, something I'd given up years ago, because Ryan said it was a hobby with no purpose. It felt good to create something for no one but myself. My mornings were quiet, peaceful. I'd wake early, make coffee, and watch the sun melt into gold over the skyline. Cooper would rest at my feet, content just being beside me. No tension, no pretending, no walking on eggshells. When Lisa, a mutual friend, invited me to her wedding, I hesitated. Ryan might be there, she said gently over the phone. But you should come. You deserve to live freely, not hide from ghosts. She was right. I wasn't scared of him anymore. I wasn't angry either. I was indifferent. And indifference, I'd learned, is colder than hate. It's liberation disguised as calm. So I went. The venue was beautiful, a garden strung with fairy lights and soft music. The scent of jasmine hung in the air as guests laughed and clinked glasses. I arrived in a deep emerald dress, my hair pinned up loosely. Cooper temporarily at a sitter's. A few familiar faces turned surprised to see me. I smiled politely and took my seat near the back, content to observe. Halfway through the reception, I spotted him. Ryan. He was standing alone near the bar. Suit slightly rumpled, eyes tired. There was a weight to him that hadn't been there before, an exhaustion that no apology could mask. When our eyes met, he froze. Then slowly he started walking toward me. Christina, he said softly when he reached me. You look, amazing. Thank you, I replied coolly. You look alive. He gave a short, awkward laugh. Fair. There was a beat of silence. He looked down, then back at me with pleading eyes. Can we talk privately? I glanced at the crowd, people chatting, music playing, laughter drifting. Here's fine. He hesitated, then nodded. All right, I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. For everything. I was stupid, selfish. Melissa, she lied, manipulated me. I lost everything because of her. I sipped my champagne. Then maybe you gained perspective. He sighed. I have. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to fix myself. But no matter what I do, nothing feels right without you. You were my anchor, Christina. I see that now. You're my real soulmate. I tilted my head, studying him. That's interesting, I said, because a year ago you said Melissa was your soulmate. You just needed to see if the spark was still there. How's that working out? He winced, his voice lowering. Please don't be cruel. I'm being honest. Honesty, I said, leaning in slightly. Ryan, you don't get points for being honest about betrayal. You just get to live with the consequences. He swallowed hard. I am begging you. Give me a chance to make things right. I'll do whatever it takes. We can start fresh. I looked him straight in the eye. There's no fresh start for something that rotted from the inside. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The music swelled behind us, couples swaying under the lights. His hands trembled slightly. You've changed, he said finally, almost bitterly. You're cold now, heartless. I smiled faintly. No, just healed. His voice rose. You don't even care 8 years together, and you act like I never mattered. I took a slow breath, my tone even. You mattered. Once. But the person who loved you died the night you packed that suitcase. I buried her. I don't mourn her anymore. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe because finally I didn't flinch, didn't soften. Just then, a voice called from across the garden. Christina. I turned. Robert, the man I'd been quietly seeing for a few months, was waving from near the dessert table. He was gentle, steady, a photographer with kind eyes and no need to fix or dominate anyone. The opposite of Ryan in every way. Ryan followed my gaze, his jaw tightened. So that's him. Yes, I said simply. He looks boring. I smiled, setting down my glass. Stable doesn't mean boring, Ryan. It means peaceful. You should try it sometime. I walked past him, each step light, certain. Robert reached for my hand, and when our fingers intertwined, something in me finally settled. Behind me, I heard Ryan's voice break through the music, angry, hollow. You'll regret this. I didn't turn around, because the only regret left in that garden wasn't mine. Later that night, Robert and I stood by the river behind the venue, the lights reflecting on the dark water. He looked at me thoughtfully. Old flame, he asked. Extinguished, I said softly. He smiled. Good. I like you better as fire. I laughed a real laugh this time, and for a fleeting moment, I realized how far I'd come. Not every story ends with revenge or reconciliation. Some just end with peace. And sometimes peace is the loudest victory of all. A few months later, I got the final notice from my lawyer. The divorce was officially complete. No disputes, no appeals. Clean and final. I sat on my balcony that evening with a glass of wine, watching the sun fade over the city. Cooper lay beside me, his head on my lap. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I'd gained, clarity, strength, and a self I'd almost forgotten existed. I didn't wish Ryan harm. I didn't need him to suffer. Life had already taken care of that for me. He followed his heart, chasing sparks. I followed my dignity and found fire.